Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is sales insights for logistics leaders with my friend Trey Griggs. How's it going, Trey Griggs?
Good, Joe. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you again, man.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I saw you at a conference. We talk on the phone every once in a while, but good to catch up with you on the podcast. Trey, please introduce yourself and your companies. I know you wear a number of different hats. Please introduce yourself and your companies and where you're calling from today.
I'm Trey Griggs. I'm calling from St. Louis, Missouri, actually just outside of St. Louis in a little town called Wildwood, Missouri. I've been in the industry for about 13 years now. It's hard to believe how fast it's going. Almost always in sales and marketing. And about 3.5 years ago, started my own company to consult companies on their go-to-market strategies, help them with a lot of their messaging, their testimonials, their email campaigns, their social media campaigns, their trade show strategy, just whatever it is that's going to help move the needle, get some attention, build some curiosity around what they do. And then I have some fun organizing some golf tournaments called the Post and Pray Classic. And then I also just finished my first manuscript for my book that's going to be coming out at the end of this year on the power of self-awareness. And I do some keynote speaking around that.
You're a busy man. Trey, just to make it simple for everyone, who do you serve and what problem do you solve for them?
I serve transportation and logistics entrepreneurs, founders primarily, leaders in the space, and I help them with their go-to-market strategies that are going to help them communicate with their audience better and really move the needle from a sales perspective, create that air cover that's going to speed up their sales cycles and increase their revenue.
Yes. And before we hit the record button, we use the term go-to-market. And I mentioned to you that Kara Smith-Brown, obviously great marketer. She wrote a book also. She's been on the podcast multiple times. Kara Smith-Brown uses the term go-to-market rather than marketing because she feels like sometimes marketing, there's connotations with it, which is, oh, it's not sales. And you said to me before we hit the record button, we got to stop looking at sales and marketing as these distinct buckets. And I think you said, or I said, one of us said, the best marketers are the best salespeople. That's who you want to work with. And we have given a lot of our attention over the last 20 years, and I think it's changed over the last 5 or 10, on cold calling. Just, hey, you got to pick up that phone. You got to make 100 phone calls. It's not working as well as it once did. There's a new way to do business, and it's online first. And we all know how important our brands are. I know that's an overused word, but you help companies with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Building a brand that people don't understand the value of their brand and what it connotates, what it communicates to the marketplace. I think we could rightly so do this whole episode on things that Kara Smith-Brown has said. She also put a post out recently just reminding people that sales and marketing is one team and that they need to work together. And I think a lot of companies, they silo them, like you mentioned earlier. And a good way to look at it is sales and marketing for your company is like the offense and defense of a football team. You're not going to win very well if you don't have both teams. And what most companies do is they hire salespeople. They want sales. I think that's what they want. What they're asking their sales team to do is play both offense and defense. They're having to do both the sales and the marketing work because you can't sell anything without communicating to the market first and marketing what you're doing. So I think it's important to understand how sales and marketing work together, how their function is together, and really have them on the same team, looking at some of the same metrics to work together to make sure that they're driving revenue.
Tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you started all these companies.
I grew up in Kansas City in a little town called Raytown, Missouri. I spent my whole life there and I actually taught at the local high school after college for a while. That was my first job. My first real job out of college was teaching high school physics, which I loved. And by the way, if it paid anything, nobody in transportation would even know who I am because I really loved teaching and coaching. I just couldn't make enough money to provide for my family because my wife, she stayed home whenever she retired and stayed home whenever we had kids. And I didn't want to be a principal. And so I had to move on to something else where I could make a little more money. So that's how I got into sales. And that's how I got into transportation. My first job in transportation was when we lived in Portland, Oregon. After I did door-to-door sales for 15 months, I got a job with DAT, Freight and Analytics. At the time, it was TransCore DAT. On the inside sales team with Janice Compton, I was selling the load board service and rate view to carriers and brokers. and did really well there after door-to-door sales. That was pretty easy to sell their service to carriers and brokers who needed it. And so that went really well, got promoted to the enterprise sales team, started working with larger brokers and carriers at that point, and just had a great run there for 4 years, and then decided that I wanted to jump into startups. So I moved around from a couple startups, mainly technology companies in the space, some that people have definitely heard of, Trucker Tools and Lean Solutions Group. And then 3.5 years ago, decided to go out on my own and start helping companies with their sales and marketing processes and everything that they need to drive revenue.
I love it. I love it. So the other day when we were talking on the phone, I asked, tell me what you're doing with your customers. And you walked me through this whole idea of how they're perceived by their customers. I think you're collecting testimonials, also collecting just, hey, this is what they think of you. It's not so much, you might have a sense of who you are and how you're perceived, but it's not actually how you're perceived. It's how you think you're perceived. And I know you're writing a book on self-awareness. Self-awareness is other awareness. How do other people perceive me? So talk about the process you're working with when you engage with your customers.
It's definitely important to speak with my clients about who they think they are. And there's always some truth in that. There's a little bit of truth in the message when they tell me why they started the company, what their mission is, what they're trying to accomplish, how they do it, all of those things that they see from their perspective. But that perspective is not whole. When you're wanting to communicate with the marketplace, you want the whole story. And so I spend a lot of time with my clients' customers, just asking them what they think about the product or the service or the team or the responsiveness or the onboarding or whatever it is. I want to know their story, their experience with the customer, because that's, to me, the most important information that you can get when you're thinking about the messaging that you want to create to the marketplace. I often say that the customers hold the marketing gold. What I mean by that is, if you want to know what you're really good at, if you want to know where you struggle, if you want to know what value you bring to the marketplace, if you want to know what you do best of all the things that you do, ask your customers. And I think a lot of companies are afraid to ask their customers. They're afraid to maybe uncover some words. They're afraid to uncover uncomfortable conversations about maybe disappointments or whatever. But what I found is when you ask customers for their opinion, you actually embolden them, like you endear them to yourself, because they go, wow, these people really care about my opinion. They want to know what I think. And it's much more of a net positive than a net negative across the board. And it makes you better. When you ask your customers where you're struggling and they're honest with you, that's really helpful. And this is what's really key. What I've found is that it's really hard for customers to be honest to you directly as the vendor. It's much easier for them to be honest with a third party. And that's where I come in. And that's one of the values that I bring is I speak to these customers and I don't mind asking them really tough questions. And I don't mind hearing what they have to say. And they don't mind sharing it with me because it's not personal. I'm just a third party in this whole thing, kind of collecting the information. And that's been really valuable for my clients when I go back to them. I'd say, did you guys know the value that you're bringing is this? Did you guys even realize that? Or I say, I'm hearing consistently that customers love your product, but this is one sore spot. Have you guys heard that? And it opens their eyes to what's actually going on and makes them better. So to me, it's just really the marketing gold is with the customers.
It's also getting to the truth, right? So you're absolutely right when you say you don't want to hear back all of it because you're afraid of what it might be. And by the way, I went through this exercise with my executive coach, Ann Holm. I think you met Ann.
I haven't met Ann, but I've heard you talk about her.
Yeah, I think I tried to introduce you guys. I don't remember because I think when you told me you're writing a book. But anyway, I went through this self-awareness thing with Ann. And basically it was, hey, I'm going to go around and ask people you give me, friends and family. Here's the list. Go talk to these people. What are your impressions of Joe? What's he good at? What's he great at? What's he bad at? And I was like, okay. I gave her the names and I sent them all a note saying, hey, Ann's going to reach out. Do you mind taking a few minutes talking to her? And didn't give it much thought. And then I remember I got the feedback and it's all anonymous, but the vast majority of it is positive. These are my friends and family. Obviously, they like me. They tolerate me. But there was little pieces of it that were like, oh, Joe's great, but blah, 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 not good at this, or talks too much, or this, that, the other thing. And it's true, right? And then you go, damn. And I got to tell you, overwhelmingly positive, because these are my friends and family, but every little negative thing, it's an opportunity to grow, but it's also very painful. And I just heard Conan O'Brien say this. He said, the painful part of being in the business I was in for so long is you get these wonderful reviews. And the one thing they'll say, everything was great, except this one thing. And he goes, and the little one thing that is in the last paragraph eats me alive. But it is where, you said it, it's where the opportunity lies. If I'm not onboarding my customers, I need to know that.
Yeah. But it comes back to this principle that I've been enjoying for several years now, and that is the fans first principle of the Savannah Bananas. They are the best at getting customer feedback and experiencing the customer experience. I don't know if you know this, but at every Savannah Bananas baseball game, one employee is a fan for the game, meaning they order tickets just like a fan. They drive to the game just like a fan. They come in like a fan. They don't talk to any of the people that work there as if they are an employee. They do everything that a fan would do. And then they come back and their job is to write a report the next day about what was great and what didn't go well, what could have been better. And they're constantly trying to improve as a company because they want fans. And it makes sense. Every business out there should want fans because fans do three things that are really important. Fans pay full price. Fans continue to come back over, and fans tell everybody about their experience. What business doesn't want that? I don't care what business you're in. What business doesn't want that? And so understanding the customer experience is critical. It is paramount to improving what you're doing to truly have fans. And when you jump in the customer seat and experience it, or when you ask them for their opinion, then they really see that and they value that. Wow, these people really care. And it makes them an even greater fan, even if their feedback has some negative things in it or areas where you can improve. They still feel more endeared to you because you asked.
Yes. And you mentioned also that you're the middleman. You're the one soliciting the inputs. I know I've known you for a number of years. You're a kind person. I'm sure you're being truthful, but also not putting that iron fist a little bit in the velvet glove. So you're not killing your customers with negative feedback. And again, I don't think most companies that are asking you for your help, they aren't companies that have done a horrible job in the past. They're companies that I'm guessing for the most part really care about their performance and about their customers. Otherwise, they wouldn't be engaging with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting that negative feedback is just one piece of information that I'm trying to get. So, I mean, obviously, you want to get any areas where you can improve. That always helps your company out. But I'm also wanting to find out where's the hidden value? Where is the added benefit that my clients don't even realize they're providing because of some part of their service or the technology or whatever it is. And so I want to find out those hidden moments of value, that hidden gold that we can use. And I also am trying to figure out which customers would be the best potential testimonial candidates. Like who's raving about this and who wants to tell more people about it, who really is bought into it. And I'm trying to figure all that out. So there's several reasons for doing it. The negative information or the feedback,
it's what we focus on, but it's the smallest piece. I understand that. So talk about the power of testimonials. I know already about this because I've read quite a bit about it. Talk about that power of testimonials on a website or in a presentation or word of mouth.
It goes directly to understanding human psyche and why people make the decisions that they make. I often tell my clients, and I tell people this when I'm on shows, is that a sale is the result of decreasing the risk and increasing the trust that a prospect has. If you decrease the risk and increase the trust, then a prospect usually says yes if it's something that they need in their business. When people don't get a sale, it's because they haven't decreased the risk. It's still too risky for them and they haven't built up the trust. When you're here, you don't get the sale. When you're here, when the risk is lower and the trust is higher, you get a sale. The fastest way to decrease risk and increase trust is for prospects to hear from customers who paid for and chose the service that they're thinking about doing. It's the exact same reason why anybody, and I mean anybody who's thinking about going to a new restaurant, they would never call the restaurant and ask them how their steaks are. They would never call the restaurant and say, are the appetizers good? Is the salad good? They would never do that. The first thing and the only thing that they would do is they would try to hear from somebody who's been there through a review, through a Yelp review, through maybe a friend who's been there. You're always trying to gauge decisions based upon that because it lowers the risk and it increases the trust that this is going to be a good experience, that this is worth my time, worth my money. And it doesn't matter what the product is. It doesn't matter if you're buying freight services or if you're buying food somewhere or if you're thinking about a vacation. You got to lower the risk and increase the trust. And testimonials is the fastest way to do that. And that's why they're so powerful. And so when you think of reviews, when you think of on your website, hearing from customers directly, those are the fastest ways for people to go, okay, yeah, I think this is going to work. I think this is good.
Yeah, Trey, I was listening to a podcast before we got started today. And it's a local podcast here in Michigan. And number one, it's a Drew Lane show. It used to be on the radio. Anyway, they have a advertiser that's a mortgage company. And they say over 7,000 five-star reviews. It sticks in my mind, 7,000 5-star reviews. And when I got 7,000 5-star reviews, it means that I'm focused on getting that feedback on a regular basis. It also means if I see 3-star or 2-star or 4-star, I'm going to say, hey, what do I need to do? Trey, how do I need to go from 4 to 5 with you? What did I do wrong? And you go, this took too long, or so-and-so didn't call me back. Okay, we're going to work on that. And I think as soon as you start thinking about testimonials or reviews into a new mindset, there's all of a sudden a measurement to some extent if it's a review. And it becomes really important to the sales team because, to your point, I want to increase trust, reduce risk in this sale.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, I just think that too many businesses are afraid to ask, and I just want to encourage them to not be afraid.
That's why
to
they
ask,
need
or to
you.
put somebody else in charge. Yeah, they don't have to be the one doing the asking, and I don't mind doing the asking. It really is.
No, I think you're also going to probe a little bit. You right now, if I go see all my customers and say, hey, please give me feedback, I have not done that on a regular basis like you have. That's your business. You're pro at it. You're also know the right questions to ask you of a process, and that's important.
Yeah, it definitely helps. It definitely it disarms clients. They feel like they can be honest. They feel like they can share a little bit more. They know the feedback's going to get there, but there's just something different about talking to a third party than there is talking directly to them.
Yeah. I know you're a podcaster too. We'll talk about that in a minute. But on the podcast, you get reviews. And I look at my reviews, and most of them are 5-star, and I'm very happy that's the case. Somebody went in and did like a 4-star one time, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And by the way, 4-star is not bad. But it makes you go, oh, I wonder what he didn't like. That's the nature of it. But I think where the value in a lot of the reviews is what they say. And it makes me want to lean into that, what they say. A lot of them say on the logistics of logistics, Joe always asks the basic questions. He always explains things. And I think the nature of our business is I might be a freight broker and be a mile wide and inch deep on that, but I don't know how freight forwarding works exactly. And I don't know how the new technologies work. So I always ask the very basic questions. But as I get that feedback that people who listen to my podcast like that, I do more of it. And same with like video clips. Video clips became a very important part of podcasting. I wish it didn't. I would have been more handsome in this life if I knew that was going to be the case. But anyway, you get that feedback and you have more videos.
And let me give your listeners a warning about reviews, because the temptation is to say, oh, we need reviews. Let's go and manufacture 5-star reviews. Let's go and ask people for 5-star reviews. Let's only ask the people who will give us 5-star reviews. The truth is, when people look at reviews, if it's only 5-star reviews, they're skeptical.
Of course,
it needs to be realistic. You ask people to give you a review. If some people give you a 1 and there's the reason on there, then go and address it, because a 1 review with a company who answers that criticism is more powerful than all 5-star reviews. What you want to see when you're a customer is you want to see a realistic perspective of reviews, with the majority being 4s and 5s. If you go look at some reviews and there's 100 reviews and 85 of them are 4s and 5s, but you have a couple 1s, couple 2s in there, that's more realistic. And that's a better experience than 100 reviews that are all 5 stars.
You're right. When I go on Amazon, I'm on Audible. I listen to a lot of books. I like to see which has the most sales, which ones, some authors that I read will have multiple books, what has the most sales. And then I look at some of the top reviews and then I look at the bottom reviews. And sometimes when I'm reading the bottom reviews, I go, oh, okay, you shouldn't be reading this book anyway.
You were having a bad day. It doesn't matter what they did. You're probably going to be a negative review. And that's okay. That's
but we're not for everybody. There's places where we fit and play. By the way, I say this all the time to young people. I'm always helping somebody look for a new job. And one of the things I say all the time to people is you got to find your people. Trey, you're one of my people. So I would like to work with you on stuff. There are other people that you can run across and you go, not a bad guy, not a bad gal, but I've worked places where I was not a good fit. That doesn't hurt my feelings as an adult when you're young and you get a job where you're like, oh, I don't fit. I'm never going to make anything of my life. Oh my God, I'm a failure. As you get older, you're like, yeah, not everybody's for me. I'm not for everybody. And by the way, I'm best in small amounts. So figure that all out. So with all this feedback you get, so you're asking for feedback, honest feedback that they'll give to you because you know how to get it. And you're also at some point getting testimonials. But when you get all that, what do you do when you go back to your customers? And what does that process look like?
So having the customer's perspective is really important, first of all, for messaging. Like, how are we going to communicate to the market about what we do on our website, on our social media, on our LinkedIn pages, the emails that we send out? How are we communicating to them based upon this information that we've gathered, both from my customer and from their customers? How do we put it together and create a simple, cohesive message that communicates to the marketplace exactly what you do, that you understand their problems, and that you are uniquely qualified to solve those problems? And if you can hit on those three things where people know what you do, they know what problems specifically you solve that they have, and they believe you can solve them, that's again a part of lowering risk and increasing trust in terms of what they do. So that's the beginning portion, is the messaging. I often say that all great sales starts with great messaging. If you can communicate well to your market, that's going to educate them. It's going to entice them because they recognize that you understand who they are, you speak their language, and then that you're qualified. They're going to want to work with you to solve their problems and get what they want. If you can capture all that in a really succinct way, then you're going to expedite the sales process. You're shrinking the sales cycle, and that's what everybody's looking to do. So that's the first thing. The first thing is, how can we message better on our website? And here's just a little sidebar: people don't read websites; they scan them. They want to just get as much information as quickly as possible. So how can you make your website incredibly scannable, which means you have to take these massive concepts and shrink them down into bite-sized pieces that people can get really quickly. And again, that's a skill that not everybody has. And so taking that information and shrinking it down to a very concise, easy to understand message that hits on those things, super important. The next thing is you start to think about, how can we disseminate this information that we've gotten from our clients? How can we disseminate testimonials? You can embed them on your website. You can create short clips to put on social media. You can write blogs from those testimonials to tell stories. You can then link to those blogs or testimonial videos through email outreach that you're doing or through your social media campaigns. You can have owners talk about those testimonials and feedback about that. One of my favorite things to do with clients right now is hosting webinars, and not just any webinar, but I love talking my clients into hosting a webinar where my client, the founder in particular, is doing a webinar with the customer. And they're talking through that customer specific problem and how they were able to fix it. Because now it's not just, hey, look how great we are. It's, hey, let's talk about what we actually did. And the customer is saying, yeah, listen, our life would be so it's like a live testimonial, essentially, is what it is. But it's more of a dialogue.
I've done that, and it is very powerful.
Yeah, and they're getting to talk about that. So it's like, how do we disseminate this information of testimonials and customer feedback in a way that's going to help decrease the risk and increase the trust for a potential buyer?
Yep. And Trey, if I could make this point, and I know it's very important to you as a marketer and as a go-to-market guy and as a sales guy, if you're talking to freight brokers or trucking companies or warehousing or the tech that is kind of come into our industry in the last 20 years, a lot of companies feel like, hey, I'm getting commoditized. My truck is no more expensive than the other guy's truck. I can't get an extra $50 or $100, which would make my margin reasonable. And when you get feedback through your process, I think there's things that take you out of that commodity. And I've heard two different companies say this to me. Joyce Brenny from up in Minnesota, she owns a Brenny Transportation.
Yeah.
And then Ruan Transportation out in Des Moines. Joyce said, people buy from us because of our values. They share our values. And then as a result, they buy from us. Out at Ruan, the vice president of safety, I forgot his name now, he said, Joe, Ruan has the best drivers. We win awards on a regular basis. Safety is our thing. We take care of our drivers. They stick around with us for 25, 35 years so that we have these values. He goes, we will never, ever be the cheapest, ever. We're likely more expensive than everyone else you're talking to. But people come to us because they say, we like your values. We like the way you roll. We want to work with you. And I think your process has the ability to pull out the things that this is really why they bought from you. You thought because you got them a truck that seemed a reasonable price and the service was okay. But you might say, no, they bought from you because of blank. Please elaborate.
Values are definitely important. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to relationship or perceived relationships. And when you have shared values, that increases relationship really fast. I'm doing a workshop today, actually, after this call, a Storybrand workshop with one of my new clients. And one of the questions that I asked them in this workshop in the first intake session is, do you have a written mission that you've memorized and everybody knows and is like a galvanizing mission? Do you have a vision of where your company's going? And do you have core values? And most of the clients I work with don't have it.
They have it in their heads sometimes, but it's not on paper and they haven't
They
communicated
might
it.
have done an exercise 4 years ago, but they're not using it. They're not using it to make hiring decisions. They're not using it to make other business decisions. And the problem is your team does not have any North Star to lead them. If you have really strong mission and vision and you hire people based upon that mission and vision and core values, then you're freeing people up to make decisions faster and to move faster because they're moving in line with this North Star that you've given them of your mission, vision, core values. And a lot of companies don't use that very effectively, but that's a part of the messaging because, again, at the end of the day, you're selling to people who you want to connect with. You want to invite the right people in. And the only reason that you can attract the right people is if you actually communicate your mission, vision, and values.
You said it earlier, and I totally agree. We want fans. Fans will pay full price. Want you to do well. If you find yourself talking to people who don't see what you do as different and better, then you've fallen into the wrong conversation. You want to get people who say, Trey, I've known you for years. I've heard your podcast. I saw you give a speech at a conference. We have a lot of common friends. I want to work with you. They aren't saying, hey, I'm looking at 6 guys just like you, and you all have to fill in this Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to try and quantify you guys. You're like, no, that's not the conversation I want to be part of.
I just had a client yesterday have this conversation with me about working with me and working with another vendor similar to me. And he said, you just get me. Because you just understand me and that's a big part of it. Like like you said, finding the right people, finding your tribe, finding people that you share values with, that you share that kind of common goal towards.
Yeah. I found my people. They just keep getting away and I have to chase them down. That's anyway, you mentioned Storybrand. I know you're a Storybrand guy and I've loved the Storybrand. Talk about that process and why it is so widely used and so successful.
Yeah, it's a really simple framework, but it's the same framework that Hollywood uses to make great films. In fact, if you think about it, we all have these phones that are distracting us all throughout the day. The text messages are going off, emails are coming in, whatever, notifications on your phone, alarms, it's distracting us all day. But if you went to a movie tonight, Joe, and there's a really good story, you would sit there for 2 hours and forget that you even owned a phone because you're so engaged in the story. And basically, Storybrand is the framework that Donald Miller came up with to put that into a framework that's easy to understand and easy to replicate for you, for your business and what you're doing to engage customers. And the crux of it all is you got to know your customer inside and out. Number one, this is basic marketing. 2, you have to really understand the problem that they're experiencing and how it is impacting or affecting them getting what they want in life. And then 3, you have to communicate that you are a qualified guide to help them, that you've been there. You know what's happening. I think of this a lot of times with getting in shape. Man, it's more powerful to work with somebody who used to be out of shape, who got into shape, who can now say, I know exactly where you've been. I've been in that place where I was 50 pounds overweight. I did this program. It got me where I want. I can't wait to help you with it as well. That's more powerful than somebody who never struggled with their weight and who's always been in shape. You can't relate to them. That's number one. There's no empathy. It's hard to relate. And when you talk about being a qualified guide, you have to be able to communicate empathy, that I really understand where you are. And you got to be able to communicate your authority, that you can help them out. You have what it takes to help them out. And so it's just a framework that puts all that together and makes it really easy to communicate.
Yep. And by the way, I used the Storybrand methodology on some websites when I was still doing websites, probably well before COVID. And it is such a powerful way to get to clarity and also get to the place where you're communicating what you should be communicating. And again, I think if there's one challenge the people listening to my podcast have is a truck becomes a truck. A truck is just a truck. A plane is just a plane. That freight forward is the same as all freight forwarders. We get in this commodity bucket, and it's the worst place to be. And I think anything you can do to get out of it is powerful. In terms of messaging and sales, just gets so much easier if you say, "Oh, I figured out what makes us different and better." And I think Trey can do that for you. By the way, somebody said to me, I was at a conference and it just came up. They'd been on the podcast, been a customer. They came up to me and they said, "You know what I like about the podcast?" He goes, "I like being on it. I like listening to it." He goes, "You're always nice to people." I go, "Oh, why wouldn't I be?" But it occurred to me, that's feedback. That's feedback that I need to. I don't want to be fake nice to people. I don't want to be crazy. But I remember taking it and I was like, I got to think about this more.
It's a great example of feedback that you didn't even know you were doing. It's a great example of that.
And it's a funny thing because you hear things, but you don't take it to heart. And then I think this is why having someone external to your organization who has already done this many times comes in and says, "Let me help you understand why your customers value you." Also, we'll get some other things where we need to work on shoring up some weak areas. And by the way, if they're working with you, they probably like a lot more than they dislike. That's why they're willing to talk to Trey. If you say, "Hey, Trey, could you go talk to those guys who fired us 6 weeks ago?" They're probably not going to say, "Yeah." They're probably not going to work with you.
It's a little more difficult, but it's still important. And this is I'll follow up with this. Every company should have an exit survey for customers when they stop working with them and get their feedback. Understand why.
Trey, I know you wear some other hats, and I have 8 more minutes with you before you have to go to another meeting. Talk about the post and pray.
Yeah. So as you and many people listening to this may be well aware, I'm totally addicted to golf. I've been playing for a long time. I had the good fortune playing in college, which I often joke around as having a drug dealer. In college, if you play golf, you play the best courses, you travel around, you don't pay for any of it. It's all free. And then you graduate and then you have to start.
They got you addicted.
Yeah, totally addicted. And so I'm addicted to golf, but I don't like playing in 4-person scramble golf tournaments. I don't think they're very fun. They're not good for your game. People are cheating too much, which is terrible. Nobody believes the winning score. It's a horrible experience. And
it's not about golf. That's the problem.
No, it's usually not. But I'm a golfer. I want to play golf and be competitive. So I wanted to come up with something better. And there's a lot of people in our industry that are big golfers. They're very good golfers.
You think?
And I wanted to hope, my goodness, like really good. And so I wanted to draw those people out and get them into something that's a little bit more enjoyable. And so I created the Post and Pray Classic, which is a 2-person team event. And it's a blast. We have a great time. We give away the best swag. You get 2 meals when you come to this event. You get over $100 worth of high quality swag. You play competitive golf with and without handicaps. We have a happy hour after the round. We have putting and chipping contests. We usually have a special guest like a PGA Tour pro or a celebrity that comes to the event as well. So it's been a lot of fun. And I started that in conjunction with conferences, but I'm also now taking it just to cities as a standalone event. So we're having a lot of fun with that. We're gonna have a good time in 2026. I've got a real vision for what it could be, and I'm just gonna chase that and have a good time with that. So it's been fun.
So you said, I know you're flying to Phoenix tomorrow to check out some courses, and I suspect you'll be hitting the ball a few times too.
I know to play tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah, you said sometimes in conjunction with conferences. So sometimes there'll be a conference, and you'll say, "Hey, we're going to be right before, right after that event."
That's correct. Yeah, before it, just to take advantage of the people that are coming into town that want to play golf, especially for conferences that don't have a golf tournament. That's an easy one to do. But then also just going to some cities, some major markets like Phoenix, like Chicago, like Atlanta, like Dallas, where there's a lot of golfers in transportation. It's a chance to come and network with your peers and have a competitive, fun round.
And we've talked a lot today about relationships. Relationships are forged in these kind of environments. You can build relationships or you can maintain relationships on the phone. You meet people at a conference or you worked with them in the past and you can maintain. But to build new relationships, sometimes you got to get on a plane or get in the car and you got to go somewhere. And these events are an awesome opportunity for that.
Yeah, and it's a blast. We have a lot of fun at the beginning. You play a competitive round of golf. We play fast. So if you're a golfer out there and you're tired of 6-hour rounds of golf, we don't do that. We play in 4 to 5 hours max. Every tournament that we've played has been that way. And then we just have a ton of fun. And so afterwards, there's a lot of networking. And again, it's very competitive. We give away big trophies. Like it's a blast. We have a good time.
Yep. One other thing, I know you're an advisor to a lot of small companies right now. Talk about that part of your gig.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful to have an outside perspective whenever you're trying to make decisions or trying to work together. I work with a couple of CEOs just one on one, just to help them process what they're going through and make some decisions with a little clarity, just because I'm an outside observer instead of being involved. There's a saying that you can't see the forest for the trees, and that just means you're too close to the problem to see the full perspective. So having somebody who's 100 yards back who can say, hey, here's what I'm seeing is really valuable. And I love doing that. It's been a lot of fun to just be an outside resource for a lot of executives, a lot of founders, and just be available.
Trey, let's wrap this bad boy up. I know you got another meeting that we got to get you out to. One more time, what problem do you solve for your customers, and who do you work with?
Yeah, so I work with transportation professionals, usually founders, tech companies, freight brokers, and I help them become known and trusted in the industry.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Trey. I will see you at one of these conferences or one of these golf courses soon.
It sounds good, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Trey. I'll talk to you soon. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward.
You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.